So today I want to go through some of the grading for the Zentangles. I've had the opportunity to look at several that were submitted, and everyone is off to a great start. And there are some that are really quite incredible and show a lot of time that's been taken and creativity. Most others, however, are really about half to 3/4 of the way there. So I do want to point out some things to everybody, because not only does it apply to our Zentangles, but it will apply to our graffiti letters too. So if you remember, we have a rubric. It's posted with the project. So that's really important. I don't know if folks are really looking at that. And then I did make the visual rubric too to help. And we're going to really focus on this one right here, our line weight, because many people are in that beginning category. And I want to show you how to pretty easily and quickly take beginning and bring it at least up to developing, and for some of you up to accomplished. Many of you are including your small details, but some of you did the large details and kind of forgot about small details, so I'll show you how to add that today. I haven't seen smudging or scribbling, which is, like I said, fantastic. And people are being careful about drawing slowly and meeting the edge of shapes. And I'll show you what you can do if you didn't meet the edge of the shapes. You can actually fix that. So I will show you that. And this is another one we are working on, filling the entire space, leaving no blank or unplanned spaces. And just because you've drawn inside of a space doesn't mean you can't somehow activate or enliven, make more interesting the background spaces. So I have 4 little examples right here. So you can see where maybe you decided to do multiple shapes, but again, I've got like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 different textures. So what can you do about that? Here I've got, it's filling the space, but again, only 5 different textures. In this one here, I've got some really nice contrast, but I'm missing those tinier detailed designs. And then in this one, my image is just really small on this huge space, and it's really hard to create many textures. So the first thing I'm going to go with is this one here. So I'm going to pick some spaces to fill in with a thicker line. So I'm going to actually start with the outside. And this is where I'm going to use more of the side of the Sharpie. So I'm going to kind of turn it on its side, and I'm going to drag towards me, and that's going to get me a nice even line. If you push, you can kind of do it too. I don't know if you could see or hear that, but it was kind of jumpy. So I'm going to turn my paper so I can, again, rest it on its side and drag it towards me. I'm resting the palm of my hand on the paper too, and that gives me more stability. I've noticed if I've ever tried to do stuff where I'm holding my hand upright, it's hard to have that control. If I rest it, I can be calm and balanced, which if you're trying to trace a line is really helpful. So again, turning your paper as Ms. Arcus was sharing, really great. And then you can get that traced. So now if I'm like, oh, okay, the outside space is really not quite thick enough, kind of like you see here, or even this one here. I don't know what we'll do about that one. But you can do a double line. So you can just rest your hand and just go right up next to it. And maybe you don't do it everywhere, but you do it for the, not the loops. Spot. So I'm adding another space that I can use to make some new designs. So maybe I just didn't draw enough spaces at first. And you'll notice I'm not doing this in pencil first because I've gotten the hang of it, and I just need now to add more going on. And maybe I activate this background space somehow with some lines. If you're not a fan of drawing lines, straight lines, or trying to do straight lines, the key really is sometimes actually speed, but also steadiness, resting your hand. And usually pulling it towards you is typically going to be easier than pushing. All right, so maybe I leave this background still white with just those thin lines, but I need to do something to activate this interior or inside space. So I'm going to start by tracing these guys. I'm thinking to make it stand out from some of these other spots. Okay, you notice where I'm tracing. Ooh, didn't quite get it, right? That's what an eraser is for. I'm going to see what I can do about actually coloring in that space. I'm a little nervous because my Sharpie is really old. So I'm going to start doing just little lines. I trace around the designs I did with the thin Sharpie first. That gives me a little more confidence. And okay, I just need to fill that in. So again, I go around it, and around that one. And then I can do little up and down movements to get it. I'm thinking this one, maybe I'll actually fill in the circles. So again, following the shape of the circle. And that makes filling things in a lot easier. So now we've actually got some contrast, if you remember what this one looked like before. So we're filling in some spaces, and that's key for many of you who have really cool designs, but they all kind of look the same, even if the lines themselves are different. Now you don't need to do this, you don't need to fill everything in, or otherwise it'll look like everything's filled in, which if we're going for variety, we just need to mix up how we do things. Oops, so you see where I went over that line? I'll show you how to fix that in a second. So I see, okay, whoopsies, right? So now I'm gonna actually thicken my spiral. And then I'm like, well, let me make it look like I did that on purpose. So I'm gonna thicken all my spirals. Right, so I'm thickening some things here. And that just makes any space where I kind of made a mistake look intentional. So I'm gonna check to make sure if I erase it, I'm not gonna have smudges on my hand. And if I'm checking, I push my finger straight down, and I can actually see where it's still kind of pressing off on my finger. So I'll wait a minute before I erase that. You gotta be careful. All right, so now I'm gonna look at it again, and I'm thinking, you know, if the background's kind of this light, wider area, I could probably do something with that pattern and then call it a day. So I'm gonna fill in every other one. Again, easiest way to do that is start by tracing what you're, okay, so we can see much improved here. If you've got a design where you've got those dark areas, then you're just kind of working in reverse. Now you do a different design in each triangle, and that would work. So, okay, so now I've got all my textures, and I didn't have to like change my design completely. I'm noticing I, of course, rushed. So I'm gonna crisscross over that so it looks smoother, so my holes get filled in. So I'm just going in a different direction. And you can see where I went over here and here. So this is where doing a double thickness for the outside could come in handy. So it looks like my craftsmanship was intentional and I didn't make a mistake, but it was all on purpose. Okay, and then maybe I want to fill that background space a little more without having to do too much more work. And that could be another space where I add some thinner lines. And I'm gonna have them overlap in the top. Okay, and I kind of think that I'm going to add some more to this scale, and that's pretty good. I think I would do, if it was me, I'd do something else in the background, but really I've hit all the points I needed to hit. And then here I need to decide, do I just want to redo this one? Would that actually save me time? Or do I need to come up with an idea that allows that to work? So let's say I'm going to try and make this work. I like the work that I've done. Obviously it didn't take me that long. So restarting is not a huge deal, but maybe it is to you. So what if I were to do some additional hearts and have some that are bigger so it looks more like a part of the whole image. And again, maybe I have some that are cut off, giving the illusion that this continues forever, thus making it look like I've done a ton of work when I haven't. And then I can do some different designs in each of the hearts. And maybe I think, well, that's multiple designs, and I just stick with one texture pattern inside each. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about where to go next. And the reason I wanted to point all this out to you is when you're working on your graffiti letters, you're doing this, it's the same thing. No, it's not like all this texture stuff. But if you are, you know, trying to design a letter, and don't forget those serifs. So again, I'm going around my sticks, leaving the ends blank, and then coming up with some sort of fancy beginning and ending, erasing that inside stick. But a key to this is that you are going to be using your Sharpie to add some kind of shadow or line weight. It's not all this like thin line. And And so it's the same concept that we're looking at in the Zentangles. It's just being used in a different way. But that idea of drawing attention to areas because of its contrast is really going to come in handy. So first thing, of course, make sure your Zentangles are done and uploaded. And then if your Zentangles are done and uploaded, you're feeling confident about them, you are going to continue to work on your graffiti letters. And you need how many? Wow. 2. Okay. So you need 2 different designs. We'll choose the best one. You're going to show me these so I can see them and give you some feedback. 2 designs, and then we will move forward with color and background and symbols and blending and all that fun stuff on our next couple of class days.